So, good morning, Steve. If you're there, can you acknowledge that you can hear me, please, if you're available? So I'm just talking.
Hello.
Oh, wonderful.
I can
Thank you,
hear you.
Steve. Can you see us okay?
Yeah, fine, thanks.
Good on you. All right, I'm just going to mute again while we just finish setting up. Thank you for joining us.
Thank you.
because it also means the opposite. So let's generate a very strong, virtuous bodhicitta motivation for today, and think then every moment, once we generate the motivation, as Geshe Sutrim said, even you're asleep, you're generating virtue. Even you're like out for the count, snoring your head off, you're generating virtue. How amazing is that? I love that. So easy. We seem to have this karma currently to have 7 students always in the Gompa. So far, last weekend, this weekend. Of course, we welcome more and more and more. And good morning to everyone online. So if you have the FPMT retreat book in setting our virtuous bodhicitta motivation, we can turn to page 16, and we're going to start. Oh, the numbers have escalated. Yay, our karma's just multiplied in a nanosecond. Excellent, excellent. 2 more. How's that? Okay, so page 16, we're at 15b. And the fine print says, praying for virtues, our virtues, to become the causes that do not go to waste. That's what we're doing right here and now. Good morning, welcome. Now, do you want to sit on the cushion or do you want to sit on the chair? Yeah. So you can come up the front and then there's one there. Okay, we're just setting motivation, so good timing. So that our virtues become the cause that do not go to waste. So praying for yourself to become a cause of only benefit for others. This is our practice of the Bodhisattva path, even though we're jumping into the deep end when maybe we don't even feel like we've even got our toes in the water yet. It's a bit scary, isn't it? Sarah. Hola. Do you want a cushion as well on the floor? Don't sit way back down there. I can't project my voice that far. Well, I can, but, come up close. We like to be up cozy in this class. And praying for others' actions to become the causes that do not go to waste. So yesterday we were talking about, and part of what we were talking about in relation to verse 2 of the 8 verses was cultivating this mind of, we say pure view or pure perception. And this is where we were talking yesterday about regarding the good qualities of others and not focusing on the negative qualities, but also when we often when we do meditations that, we're visualizing all other beings around us because we're wanting to work for their benefit. We visualize them arising in human form, but not only that, in their, well, I like to say their best version of themselves, their most pure form. So then that in itself, in our mind, it certainly becomes a cause of virtue arising in our mind, but we're wishing for, awakening that within others. If we see, this is what our lamas, what the Buddha does, appeals to our best selves, And then we feel good around them because they've brought out our feel-good feelings. Amazing. Okay, so we can recite that together there, starting 15b. Whenever any sentient being encounters me, may it never be meaningless for them and always be meaningful. Whenever somebody has an angry or devotional thought arise, just by looking at me, may that attitude alone become a cause that always accomplishes all the temporary and ultimate purposes of that being. And I always think, well, if they're going to look at me, I better behave myself. Or as Lama Yeshe said to I have to say to the lay women, this is contextual, Okay, we're talking 70s. And so they all came up to hear the Dharma and thought, renunciation, I'll stop wearing earrings and I'll stop wearing makeup. And I mean, it was the 70s, I think, at least me and my friends, we were all not, we were involved in the feminist movement and no makeup, no this, no that. And he said, make yourself look beautiful, make it an offering. People have to look at you. So whatever beautiful is, I'm not saying makeup is beautiful. We're inherently beautiful, of course. But to draw on that and think, oh, others have to look at me, I think. Was it Audrey Hepburn who said that? Was it Audrey Hepburn? She made herself look nice all the time because people like to look at her. Grace Kelly, one of those famous ones. So just think like Grace Kelly. Okay. Whenever others criticize me with their speech, harm me with their bodies, or likewise insult me behind my back, may all of them have the fortune to achieve great enlightenment. So we looked at a little bit of that thought transformation yesterday, look at more today. May I be a saviour for those who lack a saviour, a guide for all beings who enter a road, a boat, a ship, and a bridge for those who want to cross the water. So this is saying, may I be a Buddha, because a Buddha can do all those things. No, we can't currently do all those things. It's Venerable Daichin. She was just dropping something off, I think, getting something for downstairs. She's joining the Vajrayaginis downstairs. So we're having, as those of you on Zoom as well know, who are regulars here on this Sunday of the month, we always seem to coincide with Vajrayagini practice downstairs. Yeah, so we get all the vibes coming up, joining us. It's fantastic. We had to do the numbers of how many could be in the Tara room, just like in here, social distancing. And but there's a bigger space. Anyway, so fantastic they've been able to come again on site and join together in amazing practice. So she's a very powerful emanation of Tara. I call her a Tara action woman. I should say action Buddha woman, shouldn't I? Or whatever. Sorry, Tara. Or the swift energy of all the Buddhas arising in that form, ready to help us. May I be an island for those who seek the safe shore of an island, a light for those who want a light, bedding for those who wish for bedding, and for all beings who desire a servant. May I become a servant of them all. May I be a wish-granting jewel and a wish-fulfilling vase, giving rise to whatever is desired, such as food and clothing, powerful mantra, accomplishing the actions of purification, increase, and so forth. Great medicine, curing every disease, a wish-fulfilling tree, satisfying every need, and a wish-granting cow for all beings. I hear the wish-fulfilling vase. I always think of Aladdin's lamp. You make your 3 wishes, and the genie comes out and gives you your wishes. So that's what we're the genie, right? Likewise, like the 4 great elements, the earth and so forth, and like the sky, may I always be a means of living in every way for the innumerable sentient beings. Likewise, may I be a means of living at all times and in all ways for the realms of sentient beings, equaling the extent of space until they attain the sorrowless state. The sorrowless state, gone beyond sorrow, and even gone beyond fear, jigme, fearlessness, is Buddhahood. And then as we were watching His Holiness Dalai Lama yesterday here, and maybe some people watched at home as well, as long as space remains, as long as transmigratory beings remain, until then, may I too remain to dispel the suffering of transmigratory beings. So in that way, we've made a huge motivation, even we don't understand what all that means yet. We've made a huge commitment to work for the benefit of others. And here, you've made the courageous decision, for some reason, to come here into the deep end of the pool of the great scope of the mind of bodhicitta, the most vast mind, to develop the mind of enlightenment, the bodhicitta, the chitta mind, heart means heart and mind, bodhi of a Buddha who has purified everything, all the delusions, all the negative attitudes, or the negative states of mind, which we're going to look at first up this morning, and then realize to their perfection all the positive all the positive qualities, combining wisdom and compassion with great power to be able to benefit all beings. So this is what we're working towards, folks. I was so relieved when His Holiness said yesterday, so there was, for those who maybe were not aware or didn't join in, His Holiness Mind and Life Institute meeting, mainly in dialogue with Richie Davison. I think it's the Centre for Healthy Minds. His place is the Centre for Healthy Minds. He has been in Australia many, many times. Lucky us. No, truly doing amazing work. And so it was like the Dalai Lama was giving him instructions and so forth, and giving us all instructions, and giving the monasteries in South India instructions. So His Holiness was talking about developing a secular program, and he's been talking about secular programs since these Mind and Life things started in the early 80s, you know, which was secular program, what did he call? Hygiene of emotions. Mental hygiene, emotional hygiene, yeah. Hygiene of the mind. So this is what we're developing, our mental hygiene, our emotional hygiene. Hygiene of the emotions. So he's giving the instructions for developing. Where's Sarah? Where is she? Oh, back there. Sorry, I looked at you and then didn't look at you. Sorry. Can you see there? Yes. Yeah, good. Oh, I guess if I can see you, you can see me. And hopefully the altar even more. Who was I talking about? Oh yeah, schools, kids, right? This is instruction to you. We'll talk about that later. Okay. So it does the Dharma Kids. What do you call? What do you call the Dharma? Kind Kids program. She does the Kind Kids program. Yes, wonderful. Okay, so here we are in the 8 verses of thought transformation. Langri Tangpa, and we're still on verse 3. So page 154. In all actions, I examine my mental continuum, and the minute a delusion arises, since it endangers myself and others, I forcefully confront and avert it. Or the previous version, vigilant, the moment a delusion appears in my mind, endangering myself and others. I shall confront and avert it without delay, forcefully. Okay, so that's our job. Well, so hint, the first thing that we have to do is identify it. So your homework, for those who were here yesterday, if you recall, was to read this through the Buddhist models of the mind, the ones about the non-virtuous mental factors. So this is the delusions. This is the deluded states of mind. Why are they deluded? Because they're out of sync with reality. So the negative, what I meant to say about the Dalai Lama, he said, you know, in terms of attaining Buddhahood, don't think just this life, think eons. And I thought, oh, phew. But it's not like, oh, I've got eons, I'll just kick back and relax, because then I think if I did that, I'd be adding on gazillions more eons, which I've already done. You know, when they say this purifies this many eons of that, it's just like, how many eons do I have to purify? I think trillions and trillions and trillions, you know, beginningless time. Anyway, we chip away bit by bit, and we see our mental hygiene improve. And I think those of you who've, you know, sort of been working on your mind in whatever context for a period of time have seen the benefits of that, I hope. Yes, am I correct? Because otherwise we wouldn't keep coming back. We'd say, oh, it doesn't work. You know, like the guy in Long Bay who said, I tried meditation once, it didn't work. I said, oh, really? How long did you try? 5 minutes. Okay, try 5 years. Come and tell me it's not working, and we'll look at your technique. Anyway. It is true, isn't it? We want instant gratification. Oh, meditation makes you peaceful. Well, those of you, you know, who can recall when you started out in meditation, and even maybe now, it's like peace comes a long way down the track. But little bit by little bit, because we know it's possible. That's why we do it, because we know there's that possibility, isn't it? So we work towards that, and I was going to say we grab that moment, but actually that's a danger because we go, oh, wow, I saw blue light or purple light, or once people see blue and purple lights, it's just like distraction. Anyway, what does it mean? It means you were distracted. You're supposed to be watching your breath. Okay, so that's one of the non-virtuous mental factors. So this, and talking about the Mind and Life conferences, this was the very first one that, with His Holiness in the early 80s, destructive emotions. So, and then Paul Ekman and Alan Wallace developed a whole cultivating emotional balance training in that sort of, do they use what's the pink book by Paul Ekman, do you know? Pink book? Anyone? Pink book? I don't think it's called the destructive emotions one because that's the one that came out of the Mind and Life. Negative emotions, dealing with negative. Anyway, we know we're in that genre. So those ones, it's fantastic. Identifying, first of all, we have to identify these, which is why we have it presented, the Buddha, as the Buddha, His Holiness mentioned yesterday, in the dialogue with the, sort of Mind and Life dialogue, which was on compassion, science, and healing the world. I mean, no small task. So good, wasn't it? So those who watched, transform my life, works perfectly. Is this meditation? Yes, it is meditation. His Holiness, remarkable yesterday. Aren't we all lucky? Absolutely. I'm so with you, jolly. And I guess there's sound now because before you said there's no sound, so we know we've got sound. Okay. So you remember we've got friends online as well. You can say hello in the break time. Oh yes, His Holiness was talking about this Buddhist presentation of the mind, or minds. Because he said, we focus on, the sense consciousnesses and our responses to that. But the one that's really important to focus on is mental consciousness. He didn't say the word mental consciousness. He said the sixth sense, didn't he? Which is the mental consciousness. In other words, and particularly at a very subtle level of the mind, which is the one that after we leave all these clunky aggregates, the body and so forth behind, lifetime to lifetime, the subtle mental continuum that continues on with all the tendencies that we have practiced and got very good at, developed in our mind. And the good news is these negative ones that we're looking at, because they're not in sync with reality, because they are deluded states of mind, they're not actually inherent to us. They can be very well practiced, but they're not actually in our nature, of our nature. So we are not naturally angry. We're not naturally in conflict. We say that as human beings, we are social beings. I mean, look at we're talking after puja about how, people are not practicing social distancing as we come out of isolation, and hence clusters are arising here and there. Apparently Victorians are the most chummy lot. Maybe because it's colder there. I don't know. But anyway, they have a lot of family gatherings. Big ones, it seems. Oh, we have them outside because we've got sunshine occasionally, like today. No, more than occasionally. Anyway, so it is how it is right now. I guess our clusters might come and then we'll be saying, oh, Victoria's doing well, we're not. So they did say to expect this because we're social beings. We like to come together. And of course, what we want to share together and what we want to focus on is our shared humanity, our shared joy, love, connection, all these things, right? I thought one other thing I was going to mention today is also, so the solstice is also the beginning, like I get the Parliament of World Religions, update. So that's how I found out. Unity Week. It's called Unity Week, which is for the environment, and so it starts, well, in America, they're sort of launching it later today. And I mean, I've got a timer, it says 21 hours, or maybe it's 20 hours by now. And Pacific time. Is Pacific time on the East Coast or the West Coast? West Coast. West Coast, because it's near the Pacific Ocean. Yeah. Okay. So, so they're having like Indigenous celebration, and then all through the week, different things, like they're going to have a dialogue with Jane Goodall, and they're having a Catholic Buddhist dialogue with Roshi Joan Halifax, and sorry, I can't remember the Catholic person's name because it's not someone I know the name of, it didn't stick. So all these things, you know, bring awareness for the earth, and this is what His Holiness was, one of the things he was focusing on is just like, the world's coming to an end. You know, we're in the death throes of this world. And I freak out when I hear that. And then I think, oh, maybe he's talking eons, and then I relax a bit. But we see, don't we, the degradation in this world. There's no two questions about it, two ways. So, and he says, so why spend your time fighting in conflict? What's the point? The world's going to end anyway. So really, you know, make the most of what we can. Now, the good thing is that everything is a dependent, arising is interdependent, which means subject to change. So what's that island up here, somewhere off the coast, where somebody bought it and regenerated it? You must know. Magnetic Island, is it? And now all the native Lady Elliot Island, and it's all come back. And it's made it like an eco sanctuary or whatever. Yeah, I looked it up. It's expensive to get to.
There's been even more.
More. Yes, actually, we've seen that with the humans clogging up the roads and smog and carbon. That, you know, look what it's given the earth a little bit of time to heal. So I think, you know, that's been a really good indicator of where we could, you know, put our energies and must. So wonderful, so inspiring to hear His Holiness. Anything else?
In case anyone was interested, Lady Elliot Island was a guano mine.
What's guano?
Bird poo.
A bird poo. It was a bird poo mine.
They made phosphorus fertilizer.
To make phosphorus fertilizer, and they don't do that anymore because it's a sanctuary, right? Lama Yeshe said, if you see the dark light in meditation, to draw back, to remain seeing the white light. Absolutely. Yeah. Don't go there. It's a distraction anyway. The link to the Dalai Lama, Graham, is dalailama.com live. That might not take you to the YouTube. Oh, it should, because I think all the past ones are up there on the Dalai Lama website. It's fantastic. It's such, you know, we've got so many teachings from, and then I get the updates about the live streams from Lama Zopa Rinpoche. I think there's been 2 in the last 24 hours of Rinpoche's videos. So just as we said yesterday, Lama Zopa's latest thing is coronavirus. So that's what we're doing, coronavirus. It's wonderful. I wonder if Corona Hospice are now using coronavirus as their tag. Come here for, no, they probably can't. It would be a bit tricky. Yeah, people are ill. Coronavirus. Anyway. Okay, so we're non-virtuous mental factors. So these 3 root ones, we talked a little bit yesterday about the dangers of desire, attachment. This is what propels us, you know. Apparently our desire and attachment is, first of all, I mean, just looking at what were deemed necessary, what do they say, essential? Do you know when everything was closed down and we had the essential services were grog shops? I'm on this hookup with in New South Wales with the faith leaders and the health minister and the multicultural minister and the police, and we're going, so places of worship, definitely not essential services, but grog shops are. Okay. The grasping mind, the attached mind, you know, and then and then it was like, you could go and buy clothes and shoes, and it's just like, we weren't going shopping then, were we? Well, I've got my clothes, got my shoes. I mean, I get it. People need clothes and shoes, but anyway, you know what I mean. Attachment, our priorities in the world. Our desire. We live in a desire realm. We're not going to escape that anytime soon. It's our desire to have a body. It's a desire to have these clunky aggregates that we're even here, but at least we're here making the most of it to develop the positive states of mind. So this attraction, attachment, desire energy over exaggerates the pleasant quality of something, you know. I haven't seen ads. I haven't watched television for a very long time, but anything I watch now is the news. And then I think you've got an unbalanced life. You know, watch something, but it's good. It's good for the lamb room. Watch the news. But the ads for chocolate. I mean, what they tell you you're going to get from a hunk of cocoa and flour and is there flour in there? Sugar and eggs and whatever else. I mean, really? I'm going to get all that? I don't think so. But it picks up on the fact that we do impute on top of what is there, what isn't there. So this is what we do with everything, you know. We over-exaggerate that, and then the mind grasps at it, and then, you know, the clinging and grasping, the craving mind at any expense. I want that chocolate. I want that house. I want that job. I want that pile of money. None of which we can take with us. So it's not a stable thing. And we see that moment to moment. People lose things overnight. And if you haven't cultivated a mind to cope with that, then you're thrown by everything like that, isn't it? You're thrown totally out of whack. Mind totally freaks out. And then, because we don't get what we want or we get what we don't want, aversion happens, anger happens. So you now have to close the door and you're not allowed outside, and you can only go outside for shopping and this, you know, just think 3 months ago. What? You know, we had to adjust, but it wasn't easy, was it? No. It wasn't at all easy. So the mind being, you know, it's just like, you mean you're putting restraint on me? The I, you know, me and mine.
Some people just developed another new habit of going to bed at night with their mobile phone and shopping on eBay.
Yes, Venerable Wongmo talked about the shopping. I know, and now the post offices have all survived. They've flourished. They had to hire more people because everyone started shopping on eBay and said, okay, I can't go to the shop out there. I'll go in the shop in here. Yeah.
A postmaster in Monday said he'd never been busier.
Yeah. I mean, at the beginning, I was like, are the post offices going to be open? Because we want to send all these practices to all the prisoners and I don't want them to. Fortunately, post offices were an essential service. And we saw how essential they were because people started shopping big time. I hope they enjoyed their purchases. Or maybe they didn't. Maybe they got what they didn't want. That's the thing I think about shopping online. It's just like, I want to see it. I want to touch it. I want to see if it fits. I want to, you know, the dissatisfied mind. Okay, we have all this. So it colours our view of everything and everyone we encounter. If it's somebody who looks at it the wrong way, we don't like anything about them. You know, it's such a silly little thing. Silly. Ridiculous. And all of that, who said it's the wrong way to look at me? My mind, isn't it? I've imputed on that. I was teaching years ago in Campbelltown TAFE in Sydney. It was when they decided open plan classroom.
I went to Campbelltown TAFE.
When did you go there?
Oh, geez, I'll be showing my age. Back in the 80s.
Oh, this was in the 80s.
Oh.
They had a big barn. I call it a barn. They decided open plan classrooms. Did you participate in any of the open plan classrooms?
No, probably didn't.
Probably didn't. Lucky you. Because we were over here doing a theatre program. Over there, they had a language program, and over there was the big Tonka toy bulldozer thing having their program in the one space. This was a cool idea, you know, open plan. Now they've decided open plan's not efficient. I mean, we knew that back then. Anyway, the group of women going for their English, you know, so they're all, you know, from diverse cultural backgrounds and so forth and so forth. And then I'm here teaching over here, and I just looked because they were walking through, and I got a complaint that I was being racist. And I thought, well, they clearly don't know me. I mean, I'm sure I've got internalized racism, you know, but I was just, you know, just observing. There they go, because I also taught English as a language. English to adults of other language. What is it? It's called TESOL, teaching. Yeah, teaching English as a second or other language. That one. So, you know, but you've got to understand they were on the lookout for people like we see today with the Black Lives Matter. You're on the radar that you don't feel safe. Like I worked with the women also, was that in the 80s or was that in the 90s, in Inala community theatre, mostly Indigenous women, and the fact of when they'd go to the shopping centre always being looked at and always like being surveilled, looked at. Hence we have the Black Lives Matters, you know. You know, sort of think, as a society, I mean, we're hugely intelligent. We've got to use that intelligence, okay? And then the mind of confusion, which is the ignorant mind, which is underpins all of this. We don't see clearly that we're attached to things and people and what we do as a result of that. We don't see when anger, aversion arises in our mind. And this is what he's saying. The moment that arises, endangering myself and others, the nanosecond it arises. So we're only going to be able to do that. First of all, we have to even identify what that is. How do I know I'm angry? Well, my heart palpitates, I get hot and flushed. I mean, when we're doing the cultivating emotional balance, they say, oh, the blood goes to your fist. Well, I've never really noticed that. You know, because you get ready to fight and it goes apparently to your feet as well, because you get ready to run if you have to get out of the way, right? It's not like I go, oh, there's blood running to my fingers, but you feel physically agitated. And then look what happens in the mind. This is where it endangers you. It endangers us because it's totally toxic, see red, you know, agitates the mind. The mind was maybe momentarily peaceful and then the slightest irritation occur and all of a sudden I'm declaring world war. Truly, isn't it? So fickle, the mind. Because we're habituated to that, and not only habituated to that, we haven't trained to identify that and then to do something about it. So that's why we look at all of these, you know. The Buddha said, down the bottom there, and I know it says, let a man guard himself. He was talking to blokes. The way I work with this is that, yes, he means people, because in the Heart Sutra, it also says any son of the race or daughter of the race. I mean, the Buddha was feminist before feminism. He ordained women no problem, came from this highly patriarchal society, cut across all the boundaries, castes, gender, so forth. No problem, no problem. But he used this language. And sometimes when I read that, I thought, oh yeah, men have the worst, they've got to work hard. Sorry, Alan, but you know, they've got to work harder than women at it. Do you think? I don't think I get away with that, but I don't think it's true, actually. And we can say people, human beings. May a human being guard themselves against irritability in bodily action. So, you know, when the foot starts to, you know, agitate. So don't let it get to the point where your foot's agitating. Or if you do, you go, oh, must be something wrong. Because that can become a habit. Just like those, just like dogs who, you know, they get something that itches them, and then even it heals up, they're still itching. It's a problem, isn't it? And you've got to put those things on them, and they look so dorky. The cone of embarrassment. I've got the cone on. I can't go out. Yeah. Let him be controlled indeed in our action. So this is the foundation of ethics, you know, of watching what we do with our body, abandoning bodily misconduct. What's bodily misconduct? Name some bodily misconduct. Harming, hitting, killing, pretty misconduct. The sexual misconduct, so the classic ones. What is sexual misconduct? Sexual misconduct, so we have to get it right because people have all different interpretations of what the Buddha taught. My gay friend said, oh, we can't become Buddhists because the Buddha said you can't do this in that orifice and whatever. But there was a context at the time, and at the time when I raised this with a teacher, she said, you got to go and check it up. Historically, why was that said? It was because of anal rape of women in India. So you've got to have context, right? At the time of the Buddha, nothing is fixed. So Lama Zopa heard that, people who were gay, lesbian, whatever, thought that they couldn't become Buddhist. Not everybody. I think most people got around it, and Lama Zopa was horrified. He said, oh, that wasn't ever the intent of that. So let's just cut that out, get rid of those words. He's not saying get rid of what the Buddha said. He said, put it in context. It means literally, it's not about, because the Buddha didn't really talk about sexual behavior. He didn't talk about marriage. I mean, tiny little bit, but not really. He wasn't interested in that, surprisingly enough. One day he wanted to become monks and nuns. No, he was talking to monks and nuns mainly. But anyway, so he didn't talk much about that because it's just like a loving relationship is a loving relationship. So anyway, so that's the whole point of that. Sexual misconduct, what is it, Yangshin?
Oh, it's when, if you're in a committed relationship, you cheat on a partner or you encourage someone else who's in a committed relationship to cheat on their partner.
Yeah, so if you're in a committed relationship and you cheat on your partner, this is not an ethical question to the Buddha. It's simply an observation that 1, 2, 3 or more people get hurt. Simple, it causes harm. No matter much how you say, oh, we've got an open relationship. I mean, kids get hurt and, everyone gets hurt and so forth. I'm sure we've all listened to people who've been heartbroken because, because this has happened to them. One of my friends who's in her 50s, and she started doing the online date, match up thing. Met this guy once or twice. And then she said, then she was horrified. He lied to me. And I was just like, you're 50 years old. I mean, get with the program. Of course he did. He was already in a relationship. Well, duh. I mean, is that surprising to you? I don't know why they keep making movies about it because it's so old news. Whether a man, whether a woman, I mean, this is the attachment mind driven, regardless. You know it's going to hurt people, but you just can't stop yourself. So this is dangerous. It hurts people. That's the reason. So the sexual misconduct, as Venerable Yangshin said, was you're cheating on someone you're in a committed relationship with, or you're cheating, she didn't say this bit, but you're cheating with someone you know is in a committed relationship. So with my friend, it's just like he was ditched. Well, that's what you're supposed to do, ditch him. Oh, he's going to leave her for, I mean, this one, not my friend, in your dreams. Wait till after he leaves her and then see if you really want to have anything to do with someone who cheats on their partner anyway. What makes you think you're not going to be the next one? Yeah. And then, or encourages somebody else who's in a committed relationship, or no, to cheat with someone. I'm getting confused with who's in it. You know what I mean? So that's it.
No cheating.
It's not who does what with whom in a consensual, loving, kind relationship. Buddha never said, because it wouldn't make sense. Okay, enough said about that. Radio. Guard your good conduct. Let a man guard himself against irritability in speech. So the Buddha said a lot about speech. Let him be controlled in speech. The Buddha said a lot about speech. And, in here, somewhere here, there are all these things that the Buddha didn't say. Karma of speech, page 36. Yes. Whatever the Tathagata, which is the Buddha, knows to be untrue, incorrect, and unbeneficial, here are all the uns, untrue, incorrect, and unbeneficial, which is also unwelcome and disagreeable to others, such speech the Tathagata, the Buddha, does not utter. Bit of a hint there, more than a hint, that's your advice. So it's untrue, it's incorrect, unbeneficial, and it's disagreeable to hear, and they don't want to hear it anyway. So what's the point? It's only going to cause harm. Such speech as the Tathagata knows to be true and correct, but unbeneficial. It might be true and correct, but it might be, I'm just speaking the truth. Yes, harshly, brutally. I'm just telling you the truth. You're really ugly. Well, that is not a truth, right? That's an imputation. We know that's not true. Okay. True, correct, and unbeneficial, and which is also unwelcome and disagreeable. Such speech the Tathagata does not utter. Zip the lip. Such speech as the Tathagata knows to be true, correct, and beneficial, so it's ticking the boxes, but which is unwelcome and disagreeable, the Buddha knows when to use such words. Skillful means that when is it going to be beneficial to say that? When is somebody, even though they don't want to hear it, and we know for ourselves, we'd rather someone tell us something, a friend tell us, then we get into some bigger problem out there, isn't it? We'd rather be told, well, you've overstepped the mark, or that was really rude. And I was just thinking about this when when it's not a skillful time. So somebody I was having coffee with, this was many years ago, a Sunday morning in Canberra, at a coffee shop in O'Connor. I can't tell you the coffee shop, wouldn't have a clue. I can visualize it in my own. So this person I was having a coffee with is incredibly rude to the person who took our order. Incredibly rude. They went away crying. And I said, you can't talk like that. That is rude. And she said, oh, he probably broke up with his partner last night. So didn't want to hear. That was somebody who didn't want to hear. But sometimes you think, well, they don't want to hear right now, but I hope that sometime in the future that might be of benefit. So, we just do what we can, right?
That's saying the behaviour you walk past is the behaviour you condone.
The behaviour you walk past is the behaviour you condone. That's a good one, yeah. And I know most of us have taken...
domestic violence.
Oh, okay.
If somebody knows that
there's domestic violence going on, yes.
and they do nothing about it.
Yes.
So the behaviour you walk past is
Yes.
the behaviour you
It's
condone.
tragedy, isn't it, the whole domestic violence, especially now, right? Rachel's got to get more busy with her mental health mindfulness work she does. Yeah. And then as those of us who've taken bodhisattva vows, we have a commitment where we can prevent somebody else causing harm, where we can. We take whatever measures we can, However, we can go about doing that, whether it's ringing the police in a domestic violence situation or whatever. You talk to, sometimes you talk to the woman, and I mean, if you're not the domestic violence service, of course you can contact them, but you talk to the woman, but it's so hard to leave that situation, and say, I'll get you to a refuge. Well, it's not so simple, is it? We've all got these complicated entanglements. Sonia, did you want to say something? No, you were just moving about. Okay. Such speech as the Tathagata knows to be true, correct, but unbeneficial, and which is welcome, agreeable to others. Such speech the Tathagata does not utter. So this is oh, you look great in that. I mean, it's true. It's correct. You do look great in that, but it's not going to be helpful to you because you're going to get more attached to whatever it is that you're wearing. I mean, getting attached to robes is okay, all right?
I was just going to say, people would have told me, gee, you look good in robes.
Yeah, no. Enjoy that. That is beneficial, right? That one is beneficial, okay? Just to clarify, you look good in robes. Lama Zopa said, there's, the blog, I think I mentioned to you, the blog, this was a few years ago, that Venerable Roger has, well, at that point it was on Lama Zopa Rinpoche's travels. He sort of seemed to be not traveling at the moment, although it looked like he went, the latest pictures looked like he was down at Bodhanath Stupa, didn't it? Anyone see those photos of him prostrating, Rinpoche prostrating and all the offerings, huge amount of offerings, looks like, oh, he's at Bodhanath Stupa there. So anyway, but he's not traveling outside of Kathmandu so far. So anyway, so this blog, and it'd be about Rinpoche's travels here, there and everywhere. And Venerable Roger said, we're in this restaurant and the waiter came up, or what do we say? Table attendant, host, wait staff, wait person. This doesn't roll off the tongue so well. Wait person, person in waiting. Oh, well, whatever. The person who was taking their order said, love your costume, where'd you get it, And so he went away, and Rinpoche turned to Venerable Roger and said, past life monk. He was attracted to the robes. So that's an indication that here we are talking about someone who can see the past lives of others. Sounds like a Buddha to me, and knows exactly where they're coming from. Amazing, isn't it? Of course, he wasn't going to say to that person, oh, so when you're going back to the monastery, Of course not. Of course not. But just to see the attraction, which just seems to be a coincidence, is a result of past virtue. So that person or people who say that to you, like I had it in the motor where you get your car, rego, what's it called? Department of Main Roads or a registry or whatever it's called.
Queensland Transport.
Queensland Transport, yeah. And when, because I went in like this and the woman's going, oh, you're all colour coordinated, your bag, your glasses, your shoes, everything. And then she gave me the number plates and said, now your car. How wonderful. I said, yeah, go the Maroons. It's true. Queensland's the best state to be in if you're wearing this. So, yeah, well, it was the first centre they set up here.
Exactly.
It might take in Queensland. Okay. Such speech as the Tathagata knows to be true, correct, beneficial, and which is welcome and agreeable to others. The Tathagata, so true, correct, beneficial, welcome, and agreeable, ticks all the boxes. The Tathagata knows the time to use such speech. So it doesn't mean that you would use it all the time, but when maybe necessary, because sometimes it's just not necessary to say anything. So one time with His Holiness the Dalai Lama, just thinking about that example, we were down in Olympic Park. His Holiness was giving a teaching, and I'd been part of the Sangha support team and had the opportunity, the groups of people, volunteers and people working on it, in certain roles, got to be there when His Holiness arrived at the venue, so it was our turn to be there. So us three nuns are standing there and the Gyoto monks are down there, and the people doing the flowers are up there, and I think there was a group of Tibetans here. And then His Holiness came in, he said hello to the Gyoto monks, he said hello to the Tibetans, he walked straight past us and said hello to the ones doing the flowers. And I thought, that's okay. He knows, he's got us, we're done. Don't need to say anything. Yeah, okay. So, yeah. So why does the Buddha do that? He has compassion for all beings. So that's what we're aiming towards. So we have to familiarize more and more with these afflictions. If you turn the page, of course, that's just the three basic ones. And then from that come all these other groups. So we talk about, as we mentioned yesterday, 84,000 afflictions. It sounds pretty overwhelming, doesn't it? But then there's 84,000 antidotes. So we have to know the antidotes to apply to those. So we talk about antidote for anger, one big one, and how we practice that, how we practice patience with ourselves, being prepared to take on illness, hardship, and so forth. This is the Bodhisattva training. Patience with where we're at in terms of the practice of the Dharma, not getting frustrated with where we are when we sit down, like the guy in Long Bay, and say, "Oh, meditation doesn't work," getting irritated with the practice when it's actually, well, I really haven't. It's the first time I've ever done that. Why would I think I've got control over any of this when I've never trained my mind, you know? So like that. So we have to learn the antidotes. Otherwise, you know, from these, all these other states, you know, from attraction comes avarice, greed, clinging to my possessions, isn't it? Venerable Wongmo was mentioning yesterday where we can help someone, we see that mind of greed, attachment, which can lead to addiction, for example, a very out of control mind, or delusion in thinking that, if I amass more and more wealth, I'm going to get happier and happier. And every study in the world has refuted that time and time again. So if you want to be intelligent, just know that that's not going to do it for you. However, with a mind of huge motivation of saying, I'm going to, like I mentioned yesterday, Bruce Farley, did I mention that here? Bruce Farley over there in New Zealand, one of the co-directors of Chandrakirti Centre, who made a skill out of buying and selling properties. And the centre's near Wellington. You know, he's no longer the co-director of there, but back when he was. Buying and selling properties. The real estate agents used to ring him up and say, "Bruce, look, there's another property." He'd buy and sell them. And then, as a result of the money he got, it would go into all those wonderful Tara statues they got there. I think they're 21 life-size Taras. I remember, I haven't been there since they only had 3 or 4, so it's been a very long time since I've been there. I don't know if anyone's been to Chandrakirti Centre down near Nelson. And so he was a businessman with a strategic mind and thinking, I'm going to use that money for the Dharma. I mean, like Richard Gere, it's what he does, Gere Foundation. There's many, many, many. And even non-Buddhists that you've got those like Ian Thorpe Foundation, all of these people who make money and put it back into. So this is brilliant. So this counteracts this mind of avarice, of greed, of self, the Lord of the Rings. I mean, they made movies about this, about avarice. I know Ian Holmes just passed away, so we can pray for him. Yes, 88, dead. I mean, you have to go. Anyway, I just thought it was so ridiculous. Make all these movies about a ruddy ring, isn't it? Is that what it's about? A ring?
Oh, and good and evil.
Oh yeah, good and evil and all the rest. Yeah. Obsession. And also the sense of self-satisfaction, of superiority, Oh, I've got such good fortune, I must be such a good person. I've got such good fortune. Or maybe not, I'm a good person because you don't care. But, oh, isn't it fantastic? Until it's not. And then watch the opposite come along. Excitement. This is we'd say monkey mind, because just following the senses all the time. We all do this, We don't, our mind's not trained. So when you're trying to teach kids in a class and they hear a sound or, voices, their mind goes. Well, of course it does. You haven't trained them how to concentrate, how to focus. You said sit up straight and concentrate, but you haven't told them why sitting up straight aids concentration. Haven't explained it to them. Haven't given them the tools to develop concentration. So the mind gets excited. The little kid mind, whack, whack. I mean, I'm very joyful when the little kids come up here excited, of course. Excited to see Buddhas, very good. Wonderful excitement. But when you're sitting in meditation, you don't want this mind, but guess what? The uninvited happens, doesn't it? Mm-hmm. Oh, this feels good. And you hold on to that. And from aversion, I say wrath. I don't know. Is one British and one American? Anyway, we're Aussies. What do you say, people? Wrath. What do you say? Spanish accent?
It's American and English.
Wrath. She says it very wrathfully. Sarah's very wrathful. The wish to cause harm. This is nasty business, isn't it? Vengeance, revenge, holding on to a grudge forever. It does, it comes up in relations. 20 years ago, you did that. Yeah, it was 20 years ago, folks. It was so, not just yesterday, it's almost last century. Almost, right? As His Holiness said, all of us over, well, he said that about 10 years ago. All of us over 30, we're so last century. Young people, way to go. So you had that dialogue with the young people recently. Wonderful, fantastic. They're going to have another one. Southeast Asia young people tapping into His Holiness, getting it. Okay, spite. Nasty speech. So here, when we're looking at the speech, you know, what the Buddha said, we didn't finish that. The opposite of all of that is our speech is kind, it's harmonious, it's bringing people together, not dividing, bringing people together. It's meaningful, so not the idle chitter-chatter, meaningful speech when it's beneficial, like the Buddha, when it's beneficial, kind. Let a man guard himself against irritability in thought. So this is what we're looking at. We're not going to go through all of these, but it's very useful to realize how this all comes about. And we have to identify that and say, okay, if there's 84,000 of these, or at least even these 20 plus 3, that's already 23, or we have a group of 6 or a group of 5 or a group of 1, ignorance. What's the antidote to that? What do I apply to that? That poison, we call the helpline. What's the antidote to the anger? Oh, patience, love. Okay, apply that. We have to apply it in our meditation. And as it says, the moment arises in the mind. So in other words, nip it in the bud as soon as we can, because otherwise it blows up to Mount Vesuvius within a nanosecond. So you've got to get it as soon as possible. So when we have the 4 close applications of mindfulness, a sort of classic teaching on the mindfulness, it's a sort of like mindfulness either of the body or the whole, in the whole of the body. So that can be of the breath in the whole of the body, or it can be the breath, the whole of the breath in the body, if you know what I mean. And then mindfulness of feelings, and that's very useful. It's about the sensations, physical sensations. Feelings in the Buddhist context is not emotion, it's sensation. Observing where the mind goes just in relation to our sensations in the body towards pleasure. Oh, that's nice and warm and cozy, I'll go there, Oh, that feels a bit painful, I want to go over there, etc. We're doing this every nanosecond. Just observe how the mind is indeed this overexcited mind that jumps around like a yo-yo here and there and everywhere. But then on top of that, looking at the space of the mind and everything that arises in that space, mental phenomena, moment by moment, they're arising, which is why moment by moment we've got to check up. Not every moment, but when we're in meditation, do this. I mean, it's very hard when you're in interaction with someone to say, oh, I'm just observing my mind here. Just let me observe my mind and see if I'm having good motivation. Well, you can't do that. So when in our meditation, we can, and moment by moment, oh, it's a slight irritability, or that's I'm rather attached to, better not go shopping today. Whatever, just familiarize with these in our mind. And the earlier we can get it, the earlier we can apply an antidote. And it's not so huge, it's not so impossible to do. It's the importance of this. Vigilant, the moment a delusion arises in my mind, and they do indeed arise moment by moment, but they're not in the nature of mind. They can be eliminated. We can purify them. We can familiarize with it. Familiarize doesn't mean become cognitively fused with it. It means notice it, as the Dalai Lama said. I notice, that. I notice that arising in my mind. And then apply the antidote. So just taking a step back and observing when you're in meditation. Aha. Good ones are in our nature. But if we both focus on eliminating, applying the antidotes to the negative ones and enhancing the good ones, this is how we develop our strength, our power, our love, our compassion. And this is what we want, isn't it? Because otherwise, if I don't do that, it endangers first me. It comes first, endangers myself. And then if I don't keep it in check, comes out the mouth, comes out the action, and endangers others. And then I'm a danger to the world. And this is what happens. People go, oh, I didn't mean it. Well, if you didn't have the thought, even you weren't aware of it, it couldn't come out your speech. It couldn't come out on your social media. It couldn't come out in your action. If you didn't have that concept, that idea in your mind in the first place, how on earth can it be expressed? So when people say, you say, really? You might not have intentionally wanted it to come out the mouth, you know, oops, I want to swallow that back. Of course, we all have those moments. But why we have those moments is because we didn't practice mental hygiene. This is what it is. This is what His Holiness said. This is what we have to do. Mental hygiene. Take care of the ruddy mind. Endangers myself, and if it doesn't, I forcefully confront and avert it. Why? Why forcefully? It's got strong roots. It needs force. I mean, you go to the weeds and just go, chip, chip, chip. You know they're going to grow up again. You got to yank them out. You're the gardener.
Get my knife.
She gets her knife in. Watch out.
Dig the knife into the soil and get to the root.
Yeah, which is why we have Manjushri with the sword of wisdom hacking through. It's like, get rid of it, get rid of it, get rid of it. Okay, the metaphorical sword, but sharp. And then we do. These are the things that delude, confuse our mind. So the more we do that, the more clarity we have, the more wisdom we have, the more power we have, the more of everything positive we have. So it's a win-win-win-win-win. Absolutely. And then the things that we think we can't do, all of a sudden we can do. So you really, need to familiarize with this. I mean, this all comes from, some of you have done the mind and its potential, which is the first module of this, of the Discovering Buddhism way back 2 years ago, June 2018. Oh, I've been living here that long. Oh my God, that long. It's gone like a flash of lightning. Okay, so every moment of the mind can be influenced by virtue or by non-virtue. It's our choice. We don't think we've got a choice, but it is indeed our choice. Do I want to have a happy experience or an unhappy one? Do I want to suffer or do I want to be free of that? Our natural drive is to not suffer. So why am I always causing more and more suffering for myself? And because I haven't practiced mental hygiene. That's what it is, mental hygiene. It's not about a spiritual belief. It's about the mind, cleaning the mind, Okay, and so then this is not the whole presentation, those few sheets I left out, all the omnipresent mental factors. So this is the practice mindfulness, which is, as I said yesterday, it's neither virtuous nor non-virtuous, as Lama Zopa says. Even thieves need mindfulness. People, engaging in non-virtue need mindfulness. But how we choose to apply that mindfulness and introspection, these two. Vigilance is the introspection of the checking up. What's my mental state right now? Right. And actually the mindfulness practice in meditation, but also practice in our every step, in our every moment. If we were to practice this, we would be present 24/7 in the moment, not going over the 20 years ago you did this to me, because your mind's 20 years gone. Right now, where am I right now? And Geshe Dawa at our first, it was Mind and Potential Conference 2005 in Sydney. He said, I think it was a teacher of his said, if you want to become enlightened, practice mindfulness. There you go, you can use that tag. No, you can't, because it sounds Buddhist, right? She's teaching council people and people who, you know, as His Holiness said, put it out there, it's secular. You people who are lay people, not wearing robes because it gets in the way. I mean, it's nice, people get attracted to it, but it can be also get in the way. That's why Osil, where is he? Now he's out there. Guess what I said, oh, but people want to see Osil. And he said, well, that's all right, they can go in there and look. No, but they want to see when they're sitting here. Anyway, I lost that part.
Yeah, we can see him from here.
You can see him from there. Okay, so if you sit over that side, and especially if we have the light on. So there's our protector room. He's being the protector. He's being our, well, it probably is, being our Dharma protector. So he's the reincarnation of Lama Yeshe, Spanish young man. And he's done exactly that, you know, out of the monastery, into the film studio, you know, reach the world. Skillful means. So wonderful. And Gomo Tulku, drop dead gorgeous. And his music is to swoon by. And it's rap. I mean, how can you swoon to rap? But anyway, he seems to pull it off. Truly. Goes straight to the heart. It's wonderful. Reaches the world. His Holiness Karmapa, same. There's drop dead gorgeous. And that was because one of the past Karmapas, so he's the head of the Kagyu lineage. He must be 30s now, is he? He must be too. They're all in their 30s now, and time flies. Anyway, so he's the head of the Kagyu lineage. And I think the film, Unwinking Gaze, it's when the Dalai Lama is meeting with Karmapa and Ling Rinpoche and giving them their jobs. I think for the rest of their lives, you see them come out and go, what? I got to do what? You know, it's when they're a lot younger. Okay, I've got a big job on my shoulders. So Ling Rinpoche, the reincarnation of His Holiness Senior Tutor, and then His Holiness Karmapa, because the previous Karmapa wasn't, by conventional worldly sense, attractive. So he made a vow and had the power to do this, to always come back gorgeous. So it seemed to have worked, because that way you attract people to you in this conventional world. And it's just saying that's how the world is. It's not saying, you know, as we say, the beauty lies within, but because you've got to use the skillful means, and this is what a bodhisattva does. So, you know, but if you want to be drop dead gorgeous, how do you do that? Practice patience. Chuck out the Botox, practice patience. That's what does it. Next life, drop dead gorgeous. So all you drop dead gorgeous people, which is everyone here that I can see, practice patience in past lives. Okay. So keep doing it. Anyway, so we have to familiarize with all of these. We have to be able to forcefully confront an avert, because we have to yank it up like with Leonie's knife in the weeds, in the roots. Don't leave anything behind. Sword of Manjushri, cut through. Wheel of sharp weapons, cut, 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 cut. Okay, all right. Shall we attempt to start on number 4 before we have a break? Because then otherwise... A busy late morning. Okay. Whenever I see sentient beings who are wicked in nature and overwhelmed by negative actions and heavy suffering, I hold such rare ones dear, as if I found a precious treasure. I love it. These Tibetans love these precious treasure things. I mean, I don't know, because they say you can get in the ocean. And there's no, from my recollection, there's no ocean near Tibet, is there? Maybe that's what made it more precious, because it's further away. Oh, yeah. Okay. So, oh, and just back to verse 3, but I better not dwell there any longer. There's so much you can say, but I mean, that's a whole huge teaching in itself, you know, and even it could go on for a whole year teaching on that, I think, easy. You go through, actually, when I say that, Geshe-la was teaching on Thursday nights previously, last year, was teaching on the mental factors. And I think, did you come to any of those, Sarah? No?
Yeah.
You came to some, right. It went on at least a year. It was on and on and on and on and on. I just thought, are we ever going to get to number 2? Number 3. Extensive. Because this is the Buddha's, the ultimate psychologist of the mind, knows exactly. As Lama Yeshe said, I mean, that book by Lama Yeshe, Becoming Your Own Therapist, is the most fly off the shelves book there is, you know. Okay, so so these verses, also Venerable Sangye Kadro, you know, she has a wonderful section on dealing with negative emotions, goes through anger, attachment, depression, the mind of depression, you know, as Lama Yeshe said, don't let your mind go into that dark space in meditation, being the light. I mean, we have that. We have the, what do you call it? For SADS. SADS?
Seasonal affective disorder.
SAD. Seasonal affected light boxes, they say. We just walk outside, get the sunshine, melatonin.
Section on anxiety is particularly good. I've not read it.
Anxiety.
Anxiety.
No, there's a few things, not much, not a lot, but they're on anxiety. I think we need more on that in this day and age, because that's pervasive, isn't it? So you see that in your work a lot, anxiety. I mean, stress, anxiety. What is it? GAD, generalized anxiety disorder. So wonderful. She's got a whole section on that, and different ways you think about those, applying antidotes, but also, as we say, ultimately, that emotion is not inherently existent anywhere. It's moment by moment arising in our mind, and then we impute on top of what is there, what isn't there. Like, there's a situation, you do something about it. It's not that you go, oh, it's just a figment of my mind. No, 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 no. Yes, it is, but you've got to take strong measures out there in the world as well. Absolutely. So one becomes a courageous bodhisattva, not a wimpy bodhisattva. You know, it's not about that. It's not like, oh, I'll just sit here being patient like that. That's wrong. That's wrong. It gives you the capacity, because your mind is strong, resilient, powerful, that you're not buffeted around by everything that happens around you. And so you can see clearly through it. Line of attack. Absolutely, we say that, you know. But with kindness, with the motivation of bodhicitta, for the benefit of others. Okay. So the Dalai Lama mentions about this, that, you know, he's surrounded by people who are, you know, rather nice to him. They're not these ones, wicked in nature. So it's very hard, he says, very hard for me to practice this one. You need to have a few wicked by nature people. So, but for us, we say, thank you, I've got enough of those in my life. But this means those who, you know, I think about, you know, those, like I watched a little bit of the, was it Childers? The guy who started the fire, Childers Fire. They're just commemorating because they're saying it's 20 years. Yeah, and he's due for parole, so there's a debate about, and people haven't got over it. And, you know, he's one of these wicked by nature. It doesn't mean, we say it's not true in his nature, but how he is, you know, or how he was. I don't know how he is 20 years on. It depends what he's done in prison. He hasn't been writing to the prison project, I know that. Well, I wouldn't say if he was, actually. We do have a few people who've made the headlines, and we just keep quiet about that because, you know, their minds are very psychotic, actually. So this is this. It's very hard for someone who's psychotic or somebody who's a psychopath, isn't it? Very hard to find a way in to holding them with compassion. But this is what it's asking us to do. It really, you know, puts our, you know, kindness and love and wishing to benefit to the test. Thinking of these ones, if we encountered them in our lives. From a distance, we can do it. So practice from a distance, sure. Absolutely. This guy, why I was saying that was because apparently afterwards, when they were doing a sort of memorial thing and he was there outside watching, sounds a bit warped, you know. Sounds a bit warped in the mind. I mean, I wasn't here. I do remember it from 20 years ago, the whole thing around that, but I wasn't in Queensland at the time. So I think there was probably a lot more up here awareness. So, you know, this person who, or people who are really seem to be, we can't find a positive attribute in them, it seems. And they just seem to be repelled by everything evil and negative, you know. It propels them. I mean, that really puts us to the test, our patience to the test. How do we cultivate patience for that? Should we practice? I mean, because I it was interesting because I think about this Children's guy. What is his name? Robert Long? Robert? Just because I was watching it on the news feed on my little phone. It's not so little phone. On my phone. iPhone 8S.
No attachment there.
No, I got given it, and it was quite funny. We were at this interfaith thing in Wagga at the time, and someone said from the podium, it was new at the time, right? I didn't know it was the newest one off the block. I got given it, right? And then someone said, oh, I mean, none of us would have our iPhone 8S, would we? Yes, I do. It's still in its box, but I've got one. Anyway, I've still got it. What are they up to now? 11, 12, 13, 14? I don't know. What number are they up to? Yeah. So this is somebody we say is my, you know, great teacher. They really bring us down to earth. They really get us to check out, oh, how really good am I at this, you know? And even like, you know, I see the people in prison who would be regarded by society in this category, but they're the ones trying to do something with their mind, you know, as much as they can. I mean, some of them are so far gone in their mind that they don't have power over their mind. So we have to have compassion for that. So you have to say, well, somehow they had the karma to have a human rebirth. They did have. I mean, how do you have compassion for the Hitlers of the world? How do you, if you're a Jewish person who yourself directly, or a gay person, or a who else, whatever other categories, or even the rest of the German population, deal with that history in a way where you have compassion for that person. Like, for example, in Sydney, you know, when we had the Sydney siege, the Lint Cafe, Man Haron Manos, and I went to an interfaith service. I mean, I didn't have the courage to say this at the podium, but everyone was praying for the 2 people who died. Well, there are 3 people who died. But I knew if I said that at the podium, they'd be like, what's wrong with you? That's not acceptable to pray for that person. But why not? In fact, more so, because that if that person's mind, and of course we believe that, you know, in those 49 days after someone dies, okay, this is in our Buddhist, you know, tradition, that we say prayers for them, and that can maybe, depending on our karmic connections, have some beneficial impact on their mind. But you think if he was free of all that suffering, I mean, it would have been better before he died, but if he was free of that, then it's a win-win. And in the prison system, they get it because they see these guys go transform their minds, because they say they come in here, they're angry as, they want to change everything around them. They want change, but it's all out there. Welcome to the world. And then you come in them, you tell them to watch their breath. Thank you very much. It makes our life so much easier because all we have to do is sit in a room of guides who are being really quiet. It's really easy. Come again. And then they want to change themselves. So, you know, the custodial staff see, and then they say, can we have that too? And the psychologists and everybody, you know. They see the benefits. That even those people who you think there are, you know, society's written them off, can transform their mind. But this is why each verse we come to gets harder and harder and harder and harder. It's just like, whoa, way to go. But you notice it comes after we've examined our own mind. so that we've developed resilience. We've developed perhaps a bit more capacity to be able to deal with that. We don't jump in. And as we say, this is already deep end of the pool. So this is just to have an idea of where we can go. But the first thing we've got to do is have some control of our mind in the first place. Recognize that we don't have control of our mind because we probably think we have. You know, that movie, I got so sucked in, My Beautiful Mind. I got so sucked in by that movie. And it was all a figment of his imagination, My Beautiful Mind. You know the movie? You see that movie? Did anyone else get sucked in? It was well made. Phew, it wasn't just me. I was so like in there with him. It worked for me. And then you go, whoa, that's what we're all doing. Creating these movies in our mind and believing them. Isn't it? And these poor people, their movies are very dark. Very, very dark. With that guy in Norway who killed all those people on that island, young people on the island. And he actually, at some point, called the police and said, help, like, come and get me. At some point he did that. Because his mind was so gone. And we see this with, you know, the people who connect with the prison project. Sometimes they write and they say, you know, my parole's coming up. I don't want to leave. What can I do? Well, they know they can do something naughty and then they get to stay. Or they say, my parole's coming up. I do indeed want to leave. Can I come and live at your place?
Oh.
Because I can't be out there in society. So can I be? No, truly. Can you find a monastery for me? Well, it sort of doesn't work like that, guys. And it's mostly guys. I mean, there are women as well, but it's interesting how we have the karma mostly with men in the prison project. It's really interesting.
But they know that they will fall back in with bad company and bad.
Oh, yes. I mean, the very first prison I visited, Cessnock Prison, one of the guys there said to me, I've got 2 years. You have to make sure I don't go back to the gangs. And I said, you've got 2 years. You have to make sure you've got, I mean, I'll do what I can. I'll provide some, you know, Dharma talks and some guidance and some, you know, meditations and so forth and help you work with your mind. But as the Buddha said, I can't reach in and take away, I can't wash away your afflicted states of mind. I mean, nobody can do that except ourselves, you know. Buddha can't do it, so we can't for sure. I can't, you know, sort of implant my realizations into your mind. I can't remove the afflictions. What I can do is teach, guide, show the way, show the path, show what I did. I mean, if you want what I've got, follow what I did. So that's what a Buddha can do. So as the Buddha said, I can do. But then it's up to each and one of us, including those. But a lot of people, their mind, they have no self-reflection. Like this friend of mine, even find it hard to say the word, friend. This person who was an object of my compassion eventually, but first was my object of my aversion. Actually, before that was an object of my attraction, but anyway, did the whole gamut. But, you know, it's great to reflect back and from a distance and just think, yeah, work on that. Where was I going with that? What did you say? Before object of compassion? Huh? Yeah, something. I lost my train of thought by trying to explain the transference of... Yeah. Anyway, I've lost it. Lost the thought. That's all right. Oh, yeah. I thought this person, this is the compassion that I had. They have no capacity to self-reflect. And I thought, I think that's a safety mechanism because I think if they did, they couldn't live with themselves. And so then maybe that would be dangerous. So, you know, you can think like that.
Not only that, because when we do start looking, it just gets, we actually start seeing things so much more that it actually is quite fearful, you know, it's quite scary.
It's quite scary when you do see. Yeah, and this is the thing.
Mechanism not to even go there.
And this is the thing. It's not to see things to beat ourselves up with. It's to say, wow, I noticed that. Wasn't that good? I noticed it before it did create, wait for it, a regrettable emotional episode. My favorite phrase. Sorry, that was a regrettable emotional episode. Yeah. So we can, if we find it early enough, just go, wow, I'm so glad I noticed that weed in my garden and got rid of it before I had to get out the heavy duty spade, the bulldozer, or the no toxic stuff, right? And nothing's going to ruin the whole thing, pervade. Nothing's going to, well, it has to pervade. It has to pervade with goodness, with kindness. So we be, in our practice of this, we be kind to ourselves. We delight that we notice these states of mind when it's ourselves. And then with the others, it says, I hold such rare ones dear. This is a very advanced technique. You know, we hear like, you know, these Lama Atisha and John Tompa, all of these who had these very irritable people around them, like His Holiness Setter. You know, I don't have an irritable person around. I mean, because I think in His Holiness entourage, I mean, I don't know if there was that person, the others would say, oh, you've got to leave, you know. The gatekeepers do their job, yeah. But you see our lamas, like you see it all the time. You know, Lama Zopa Rinpoche comes. You see it more with that because the Dalai Lama does have a lot of minders around him. So it is much more difficult for him to encounter those people. And actually, you know, when the first time His Holiness came to the Happiness Conference in Sydney, when we all did the security training and the federal police were there and they were all like, and they said, you know, the security is about, of course, keeping people away from the Dalai Lama. They said, most of the people we want to keep away are the ones who are going to throw themselves at him with affection, not who are going to do something harmful. Although we did have in Brisbane. You want to go to the Brisbane when His Holiness is in Brisbane? Oh, well, you know, you work out how long it's going to take to get this many people through the gate, the security gates. And then all of a sudden, it's a security company, and apparently it wasn't a directive of the organisers, said for your drink bottles, everyone had to take the top off their drink bottle. So that held the queue up. And then people were getting frustrated because they couldn't get in. The Dalai Lama's there and they can't get in. Anyway, what they said was, because that could be used as a missile. Your bottle could be used as a missile. But I don't know, if you use a bottle and it's just a bottle of water as a missile, I think one of those security guards would have caught it. I mean, that's what they're there for, wouldn't they? Take the hit. Hit me with your water bottle. It didn't help that our photographer, he was one of the ones who got caught, you know. He'd been doing some safari type thing, and so he had a knife in his bag and he forgot.
Oh, no.
And he was our photographer. He was like, I'm so sorry, guys. I held it all up and I didn't realize I had that knife in there. Oh, I'm so sorry. Anyway, I mean, you have to do those things. You have to do those things. That's right. But yeah, Dalai Lama Zopa Rinpoche, it's like you see him go to the person that you might identify as the most nuisance one. You might, you know, everyone's standing in line being, Rinpoche, notice me, notice me, notice me, notice me, come on. I'm being good student. Or whatever, you know, we're excited. You know, you've been queuing up at Kopan. How many hours did you queue up there at Kopan waiting for Lama Zopa to arrive? A long time. And they're all on the roof and they're everywhere, right? And he'll go straight to this annoying one. I mean, you've got to say it's a win-win in a way, but at the moment you're irritated. And then the organisers are irritated because they're like trying to get Rinpoche in the room, into the space to do the teaching. But it's interesting, you know, so follow, you know, they go straight to, oh, the difficult one. Now I've got a chance.
I carry this in my wallet. From now until I attain enlightenment, may I never be apart from you who do me harm, and with calm, untroubled view and conduct, may we set out together on the path of enlightenment.
Can you give me that one? Does it come out of your wallet? Otherwise, you've got to come and read it to everybody, which you're quite welcome to do. So Venerable Wangwa is going to read her thought transformation verse.
That verse.
I'm going to read it apparently. May, from now on,
Now until the moment.
I'm looking. The blissful path to the ocean of bodhicitta, a brief prayer of aspiration for mind training from Dilgo Khyentse Rinpoche. Thank you very much. So this verse from Dilgo Khyentse Rinpoche. From now until I attain enlightenment, may I never be apart from you who do me harm. And with calm, untroubled view and conduct, may we set out together on the path to enlightenment. Wonderful. That's beautiful. Thank you, Dilgo Khyentse Rinpoche. Wonderful. Actually, I might get that. My friend who's a student of Dilgo Khyentse, she'll appreciate that. From the 70s in London. Yeah, so this is what we need. We need these reminders because they push us out of our comfort zone. They really, these are the ones that are going to really launch us, skyrocket us to enlightenment, actually. Because you've got to try so hard. You've got to practice hard. And that's what it takes to progress on the bodhisattva. It's not for wimps. You might have noticed by now. This is not a practice for wimps. Okay, so we can continue on with our courageous path. I do believe we need to take a bit of a break. So there's coffee and cake, I think, down in the shop. We'll try and be back at 11, but it's 25 to now. So I'll come back. I'll be here at 11, and then whoever's here at 11, online or in real time space continuum of the Gompa, or real time space of the Gompa, in the physical space together here. We're now 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10 of us now. I'm not sure we're exactly doing the appropriate social distancing in this little cluster over here, but let's make sure. Yeah, it's okay. It's hard to tell from here because I'm looking at a diagonal, so it's hard to tell. Okay, so go have a cuppa or whatever, and you who are online, you can unmute yourselves and chat amongst yourselves. Go and get yourself a cup of cake, whatever you wish, and see you very soon.
Should we just unmute that?
What was that?
Should we just mute that microphone?
Oh, Okay, so welcome back. And welcome back and welcome back. You can join us if you want. Is she going down or is she coming up? There's a couple of other people. They're welcome to come in. Okay, so I thought before we proceed on, continue on, what did I think? Questions, comments, observations. Let's start with that. I'm hearing silence. All right, so I'll continue on. When you have questions and so forth, those who are on the Zoom, you can unmute, or those in here very effectively know how to put up their hands. Welcome, come in and have a look around. Please. Welcome. It's wonderful to have people back here. You know, last weekend when people, I've seen your hand. Thank you. Last week, if you told them all to, yeah. Okay, no problems. Welcome. Where are you from? Bhutan. Brisbane, Bhutan, or? I rejoice. Gross national happiness. The happiest place on earth. I hope it still is. Welcome, welcome. May you live long. Now I've forgotten whether I unmuted myself or muted myself.
So if you're on red static, then you're live sound.
I'm live sound, so hopefully you'll hear me. Okay. So as I was saying, if you've got a question, just those on Zoom can unmute yourself, and those here can put up their hands, which Venerable Yangshan has a question or a comment.
This increasing difficulty.
The increasing difficulty, yes.
So you just start with the first one and train along?
Look, if you can start with the first one and train along, fantastic, because the first one, verse 1, determined, you know, to take the greatest possible benefit from all sentient beings who are more precious than a wish-fulfilling jewel. I shall hold them most dear at all times, because we say in our refuge prayer, you know, isn't it? May I become a Buddha for the benefit of all. So we're training in holding others most precious and most dear and contemplating the reasons for that. We went over that extensively. So, yeah. So, yeah. We don't have to try and do it all together all at once, because then it becomes a little bit I would say haphazard, a bit of this and a bit of that. So yeah, really feel like, yeah, I'm really growing to appreciate the benefits I receive from others, and in the context of the two, you know, all the Buddha's teachings being summarized by the practice of non-violence, ahimsa, and the philosophical view of dependent origination. And as we go on in these verses, particularly when we get to 7 and 8, more and more about dependent arising and the flip side of emptiness of inherent existence, so conventional truth and ultimate truth. And then as we go along, you know, everything, there's so many more teachings that we can have. 4 truths on the 2 truths. When we get down here, 8 worldly concerns and so forth, all of these teachings, Tong Len, that will enhance our understanding of this. But as we have those teachings, also little tips come along about, oh, I could try that. I could practice that. Like the mindfulness one that I sort of didn't complete that, but of Geshe Dawa said, you know, that his teacher had said, if you want to become enlightened, you can come and have a look around. Don't feel shy. Up to you. And anyway, if you want to, like at 12 o'clock, we'll be out of here as well. Okay. But you're quite welcome to stay there or have a look, come and Dalai. We have in a pride of place in the middle of the altar, a statue of Shakyamuni Buddha that was offered to us by His Holiness the Dalai Lama in 2011. So it's small, but it's there. The one with the blue backing case, you know, in the case. And His Holiness sat on this throne. You can bonk your head and get the blessings. Oh, you know. Okay, mindfulness. So not just sitting on the cushion, as we've talked extensively about, but also just in our everyday affairs. I mean, the ants on the path and that little worm yesterday, I'm very grateful that I practiced a moment of mindfulness and didn't tread on it, because I have been known to, as I use that example, right? I mean, it's true. As one of the monks said one time, I practice mindfulness, but I got big feet. But then we have a mantra for blessing our feet and for blessing your car tires and your bicycle tires and your motorcycle tires and whatever else might come in contact with the beings that you inadvertently squash to death. I mean, think about it all the time. We're not aware, right? And say, well, you know, at least mitigate that slightly by giving them the blessings of the mantra as in their death throes, under your tires or under your feet. So, you know, we're advised to do that mantra. So every day, mantra to bless the feet, page 26. Om Kretsuragana Humfri Soha. So we do 7 times. Usually we don't do in the gompa, because then you spit on your feet or on your tires to put the mantra there. We don't spit in the gompa. And I think in COVID days, we're all very relieved about that. So you do it outside. You do it on your shoes. Actually, you know, it's easy. Of course, getting practical, easier to do on your shoes before you put your shoes on. Put your shoes on. Done. I mean, it doesn't mean you then just go willy-nilly. Of course, you still practice mindfulness, and you'd be surprised, you know. The centre in Sydney, Vajrayana Institute, in its previous location in Newtown, you know, you'd have your karma yoga jobs like here. And one of them, we had this courtyard, which was like anthill after anthill after anthill. And so you have this karma yoga of sweeping the courtyard. You could hardly ever do it. It's like sweep around the anthills. Well, I swept around there, but don't get the blower out, you know. Yeah, so you just gradually increase your capacity. But I think the first thing for us now is just to be introduced to these concepts, and that there are possibilities, and what resonates with you, go for it. You know, because that's how we build our confidence that there is something I can do without, I was going to say without too much discomfort, although as we go through, there's more and more discomfort from our side. Okay, but before we get on to that, more and more discomfort, just to lengthen the reprieve from that for a moment, which is never no reprieve because we're all in samsara, by the way, I thought that next month, when we have our retreat weekend, which is 17th and 18th, we had a little tiny bit of feedback from people that wouldn't it be nice if we had the whole weekend? So what I want is more feedback from more people. So normally we have like from 9 till 3:45 with, you know, more of a spacious break for lunch and so forth and discussion time and so forth. So please send feedback. I don't know, Eva there? Yes, she is. Eva, maybe you send around to the Dharma Jewels. Anyone who's not part of the Dharma Jewels? Okay, Eva, what's your name? Hannah. You're Hannah. Yeah, I thought that was Hannah. Yeah. We've got you. I mean, we've got your email. And you're Merrin. So we don't have your email, but you came together, you're friends, yes. So you can pass the information on. So what we have, Eva, come and, I don't know if it'll work. Unmute yourself and talk, and we'll see if Merrin and Hannah can hear you.
All right. Okay. If they want to join the list, they can email me, or should I tell you the email address or what?
They could give it to me.
Yeah, you can give it to them and just email me. Then I'll know who they are.
Okay.
And I'll include them on the list.
Okay, good.
Yeah.
So if you give your emails to Venerable Yangchen, thank you very much. You'll give to, and so what Eva does is send out, and then Eva, you send out the little survey like you did last time. What would people like?
All right. Okay.
And that's how we came up with this.
Yes. All right. I'll do that.
if they want to stay as is, so, or full. So it's just one weekend in July for the retreat weekend, like we did for the last module. We just had the one weekend for the retreat weekend. You're quite welcome to come up and have a look around. Don't be shy. That's all right. Welcome. Your first time here? Excellent. All the more reason. Come and check out all these holy objects on the altar. Okay. Any other announcements?
No, that's all.
We're hoping for, everyone's got to say prayers that by the 6th of July, we can have 100 people here so that we can all join Geshe-la with his ever increasing vision for the celebration of His Holiness' birthday. He's now invited Tibetans to perform. So I thought, whoa, we're going to have a crowd. Just like that. And a big cake. He's ordered a big cake, which is good because I was just writing down big cake and he said, oh, I've ordered a big cake. I'll do 85 years birthday, 6th of July, which is Monday.
Oh, sorry, Choki, one more thing. If they can give me the surname as well as the first name.
She would like, Eva would like your full name.
Yeah, because we have 3 Rachels now.
I thought we had 4 Rachels now. 3.
3, yes.
3. I know, Rachel's a popular name.
Yes.
The Rachels. Go the Rachels. There's only one Hannah, yeah. There's only one Mary. So far. Watch this space. There's only one Sarah too. Okay, one of this and 2 of that. Okay, dokie. So, all right. Thank you very much, Eva, for what you're doing. And all the so the Dharma Jaws is this, you know, the buddy group of people who come to these classes. There's no pressure. There's no whatever. It's just telling you. Well, when we were all together here, it was usually planning our next afternoon tea. So maybe we'll have, if we do have a full weekend, maybe we'll have an afternoon tea for first time in months, because there's always a reason to have an afternoon tea, right? Yes. We create a reason, which is just coming together, you know.
Well, if it's in July, it will be close to His Holiness' birthday.
Close to His Holiness' birthday. Christmas in July. We can go for it, radio. Okie dokie. Is that when it started, actually?
Yes, it did.
It did start. It'll be our 2 years anniversary of Dharma Jewels. Think about that. We've got a reason to celebrate. And we've got 2 ordained members here, and maybe by then Venerable Gompo, are you online today? Maybe he'll be able to join us as well. That'll be 3 from this class ordained in the last year. Well, amazing. Who's next? I know, I said people are going to get worried. They come to this class, they get ordained, but fortunately, I mean, I shouldn't say it like that. The Dalai Lama did say he needs people in lay clothes to reach the whole world. No pressure. Okay. All right. So before we move off verse 4, and I do realize in the next 45 minutes we've got 4 voices to go. Oops. Okay. This is why we need a whole day, you know, a whole weekend. I just wanted one story, one example from that Lama Zopa Rinpoche uses in relation to this one. And Leonie very kindly pointed out, I think it was Leonie, that the translation, so those of us who've got the book with the previous version, I shouldn't say old version because there's so many different versions. So what we had, whenever I see beings who are wicked in nature and overwhelmed by violent negative actions and suffering, so that line got changed to overwhelmed by negative actions and heavy suffering. So the word, the phrase with the emphasis, with the more heaviness, is heavy suffering, not heavy negative actions, okay? So it shifts. You see, that's why it's good. It shifts the meaning. So they don't have to be a violent criminal, you know, and that pertains to this example. But their suffering is heavy, heavy, heavy. You can see that. For example, I mean, I don't know, I wouldn't have put this woman in this category. Not apparently wicked in nature. But the poor woman on a bus didn't have control of her speech. So whatever popped into her mind came out the mouth for the benefit or otherwise of everyone on the bus. And it was ugly, really ugly. Wasn't abusive, but just you think, you poor thing, heavy suffering. It was out there. Her heavy suffering was out there. She couldn't contain it. You know, whatever mental health issues she had, she wasn't, you know, she didn't have that, what do we call it, where you control yourself? Self-regulation, thank you. She didn't have the self-regulation. This is what they like with our guys in prison. You know, they do shamatha practice. And then they do compassion. Actually, compassion's more powerful. Compassion meditation, the transformation of the mind happens more quickly, according to Richard Davidson and friends. And so, but anyway, they do this. See, I give an explanation and I lost the first explanation.
First one was a woman on the bus.
Yes, this was on a bus and then it was the people in prison. Oh yeah, they do the studies on this, self-regulation. And this is, they enhance their capacity for self-regulation, emotional regulation. In other words, they've got the mindfulness. And pro-social behaviour, we're talking criminals here, turning their lives around from anti-social behaviour to pro-social behaviour and a sense of hope, probably for the first time in their lives. You know, mostly coming from broken homes, from lack of education, poverty. I mean, I'm talking about the people who connect with us. What was his name? One of those high flyer. He was at Muswellbrook Prison when I was there. Anyway, one of the stockbroker types. He never came along to the chapel. He had other connections. Okay, as long as, anyway, if that worked for him, okay. So the example from Lama Zopa Rinpoche was this story that Venerable Yangchen might have thought I was going to mention yesterday. So in Tibet, this, you know, highly esteemed Lama, and his, so he was crossing a river. This is the one with the river, right? There's a few with the river. He was going to cross the river. He was a monk. He was going to cross the river. And there was a woman there who had leprosy and the oozing sores looked vile, disgusting. And she was asking, can you carry me across the river? Well, one thing, she had oozing sores and so forth. So, you know, I don't know, you can catch leprosy like that, right? And the other thing is that she was a woman, he was a monk. So it would be against his vows to do that. Bit too close to a female. I don't know if it's strictly against the vows, actually. They get very technical with those vows and I don't want to go there. I really, it's just like by the time you get so technical, I think you've broken the vow anyway. Just got to say it. Anyway, so he declined and went on his way. His student came along. She was still there. Please, can you take me across? He was a monk. And out of his great compassion, he thought, well, he knew his vows, but he could see her suffering and just thought, I can't bear to see that. So he takes her across, halfway across the river. She transforms into Dorje Padma, Vajrayogini. They're practicing downstairs into drop dead gorgeous, basically, which is an analogy for these people being able to help us to remove the obscurations. And this is transforming his impure view into pure view. So that's the analogy of removing the veils of the mind. It's like when Maitreya, Arya Sangha, saw this dog covered in maggots. The dog had an oozing sore and covered in maggots. And this was after he tried very hard to get a direct view over 12 years. Or, you know, this was his third or fourth time of giving up the retreat to see Maitreya becoming Buddha of loving kindness. So he's coming out of the cave going, well, that didn't work. And then he sees this dog. And out of his compassion for the suffering of the dog, he wants to remove the maggots. But then he thought, well, if I just pick them off, I'll harm the maggots. So he gets down there and he thinks, oh no, first of all, he cuts a bit of his flesh. Do not practice this at home, right? They say that until you reach certain bodhisattva levels, don't practice this. They can give their parts of their body no problem. So he cut up a bit of his flesh, off his thigh, and put it down so the maggots would have something to feast on. So then he got down to the dog and he put out his tongue to very gently remove the maggots one by one and transfer them from here to here. And his tongue, he had to have him lean forward because the dog he couldn't reach the dog. And the reason he couldn't reach the dog is in that moment it transformed in Maitreya, who he'd been trying to see for 12 years. Because of his great compassion, his limitless compassion, same thing. He removed the obscurations from his mind. Therefore, he saw Maitreya, who he'd been trying to connect with. But he didn't go, oh, thank you, finally I've seen you. He went, where were you all that time? At 12 years, I've been waiting to see you and you just didn't turn up, from his side. And then Maitreya goes, see my shamtab? This was called a shamtab, this lower robe. It says, see that? That's where every day in the cave you turned around and spat. So he was there, I was there, but you didn't see it. Asanga is still going, I still don't believe you. Wow. And so Maitreya says, okay, you pick me up and put me over the shoulders, like the dog, go down into the village and see what they said. And he did that, and most people saw nothing on his shoulders. Apparently one woman saw the leg of a dog. So she had a slightly more pure view, believe it or not, even though it was a dog, she could see something. So, they say when we remove our obscurations, we see reality as it is, because we're taking the veils off, lifting the fog of our obscured mind. That's why they're so precious, okay? All right, so verse 5. When out of envy others mistreat me with abuse, insults, or the like, I accept defeat and offer the victory to others. So again, this is not about just letting people throw sticks and stones at you and abuse the hell out of you and be in abusive relationships and just, no, totally wrong. This is why these are advanced teachings, because people read that, they don't have the foundation of the lower scope and the medium scope or any understanding of any of the teachings of the Buddha, and they think, those Buddhas are pretty crazy lot. Who would do that? Well, that's totally wrong understanding. So it's a bit similar to, the previous one of saying these people who do that are, propel us on the path, because without our opportunity to practice. But it's also a recognition, particularly of karma, of the workings of karma, that if we're being abused, and it's not to say I'll stay in this domestic violent relationships because it's a ripening of my karma. No, that's wrong. But there are no mistakes. So we can't take this like literally like that. But there is some ripening of some past karma from a previous life. We might have been a lion, ripping other animals to bits, or a bush turkey with attitude, for example, given a hard time to all the other poor little birds. And then that multiplied because we didn't purify our own minds. I mean, we don't know the workings of karma. So sometimes in the actual direct situation, it doesn't help to say, oh, it's karma, because how's that going to help in that situation? But where it does help, I was thinking one example was one of our guys in the prison project in America, in North Carolina, and he visits people in prison, and he runs forgiveness programs for the prisoners to forgive themselves. Because I have to say, working with prisoners who are wanting to change their minds, wanting to turn their lives around. They say coming into prison was really my wake-up call. These are the ones who use it as an opportunity. They're transforming their minds. I can't imagine from where they've come from. I mean, I hear the stories. But it's so, and I think, wow, they propel me to think, well, you could at least do a bit of practice, work a bit on your mind. Look at what these guys are doing. They're really inspirational, because they go a long way. Incredible. I just actually in the break, one of our guys called me because I said to the chaplain who used to visit me, she said, used to visit him regularly for the prison project. And she said, oh, he's been released. So I said, oh, tell him to give me a call. So she gave me my number. So I got a message. I go, oh, no, I want a bit of time to chat to him. One of the other guys got released maybe a few months ago. And she sent me a video, which of course I can't share anywhere because, he's got a criminal record. So I'm not going to share it. But he was teaching his little daughter, 2-year-old daughter, to prostrate. She was doing practice with him in the morning. Just like, oh, way to go. He took refuge last year. Anyway, amazing. Anyway, so Andre in North Carolina, he visits these people in prison and he runs the forgiveness workshops with the guys to forgive themselves, to help them to come to a point of, it's forgiving, not forgetting, right? The mind of forgiveness. And that's for all of us. Forgive the deed. I mean, His Holiness the Dalai Lama at a talk in Japan some years ago said, they've done their time. Let them get on with life, Don't hold that. And you also think that moment of that act, it may have been a moment. It may have been premeditated. It may have been more than a moment. It may have been a whole plan. It may have been a series of events. But it's not the whole entire entity of who they are. And that's what we have to tell them. That's not who you are. Like one of the guys said, Candrella went to visit. And so down in Loddon prison in Victoria, she visited Loddon and she visited Junee. The guy in Junee took refuge with her. Now he's released too. Amazing. He finished discovering Buddhism in prison, did Nyungne in prison. He's the only one of our guys so far who has managed to do that. Amazing. Actually, we've got 2 more who are wanting to do it now in America. I mean, you tell them what others are doing and they want to do it too, They're up to module 14 of discovering Buddhism, 2 of them. No pressure. They're working on their Nyungnes. So Andre teaching the forgiveness. And how he started was he went to visit the person in prison who had killed his son to forgive them. In his mind, he knew, he didn't say it to the perpetrator, he knew my suffering is ending. This person's only just beginning. And this is what this is about. This is my karma ripening. So mine's finishing. But what karma are they creating? So we have to, it says give the victory to them, but really we've got to offer compassion to them, really. But, we don't hurl abuse back, insults back. Sure, you're in a domestic violence situation or whatever. You get the hell out of there as soon as possible. You get all the services in to help you. Please, if you wish to come and have a look around, I know I say that to everybody and everyone sits down the back, but that's okay too. That's fine. But you are most welcome. We do need you to, if you haven't signed in down somewhere on the property, to sign in for COVID, safe, COVID safe. But otherwise, please make yourselves at home in a socially compassionate, distancing type of way. I know they're doing. They know what they're doing. Everyone's used to it. They go to cafes, they go to restaurants, they go all sorts of places. You've got to sign in. So we have got a big group. We just need a bit more social distancing. Are you all family? Are you all family or travelling together? Yeah, we just don't breathe on each other. apparently. But you're most welcome. Is this the whole of Bhutan arriving? Yes, Bhutan day out. Wonderful. Are you from Bhutan or from Brisbane? When did you come from Bhutan? How long? How long in Australia? 2 years. And today, where do you come from? Today came from where? From Brisbane. So staying in Brisbane at the moment. Because we want to celebrate the Dalai Lama's birthday, but I mean, we are on the 6th of July. I don't know if are you having celebrations in Brisbane? Don't know. Anyway, we don't know if I can't know yet if we can say, come on up, because at the moment we're not allowed to have more than a certain number of people. And I think we might have just reached our limit in here. Just saying. Okay. So we have this misconception about how things are and about how we perceive things. So this is to help our mind see there is no mistake, you know. I mean, in the Bodhisattva's way of life, particularly in that one on anger, you know, Shantidevi goes into great detail about this. You know, if somebody's hitting you with a stick, for example, why blame the person? So we don't blame the person, we blame the affliction, of course, of the anger. But if you're going to blame something, they say, well, why not blame the stick? It's the stick that's hitting you. But we know that's silly too. But it is the stick that's causing you harm. The person wielding the stick is already their mind's kaput, right? So we can have compassion for that. So it's just like find a way to work in our mind It can be really tough words to hear. I find this one is probably the hardest, personally. Let's see, it says here. If I find the right place, it would help. Thought transformation. So if possible, as suggested by Venerable Sangye Kadro here, if possible, what we do is, if we can, actually listen to the words the person's saying, not the emotion of it, not be antagonistic back, but there may be actually some validity, even in the conventional sense of today, in what they're saying. And maybe when they're in full-blown abuse and insult and anger is not the time to chat to them, but sometime afterwards to say, when you said da, 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 is this an issue? Is this a, you know, find some way to listen to their complaint or whatever it is, but not in the height of emotion, because then we're talking to like, it's like we're talking to a you know, drug-addled mind or a alcoholic mind or whatever. They're totally been hijacked. There's no rational thought going on there, and that will only ever escalate the situation. So of course we have to try and do it like that. But to try and find some way of, in our own mind, accepting the defeat of what? The defeat of our own past karma ripening here, done, victory over that. If you say it's a victory over that, that's complete. Just like Andre could say, my suffering's finished, yours is just beginning. And similarly, we had with the couple, you know, the guy, the young boy in Melbourne, Sydney, who was just killed by the even younger boys. I mean, and the parents forgive him. Now, I don't know if they would have found it so easy to forgive if it had been adults who did that. But with, maybe it was easier for them because it was 13 to 16 was, imagine. And I just think, what's going on in the minds of those people, those poor boys? You know, how have their minds got to be like that? We've got to sort of try and find that, know that They don't want any suffering. Here they are, clearly suffering. And they're causing great suffering to others, no question of a doubt. It's horrific. Of course, you still go through all the legal processes. You do what has to be done. Absolutely. But we don't want it to harm our capacity to be able to be of benefit. It's really hard. I find this really, really hard. So it's mere, you know, we can see that this is really so that we don't ourselves become outraged. You know, you see those vigilante groups or, you know, at court cases, you know, people outside, you know, die, or whatever. Because they're so hurt, it's coming out and that's only escalating it. And as Dharma practitioners, we know one moment of anger can destroy all this hard yakka you've been doing, just listening to all these verses and thinking about how you're going to transform your mind, and then it's all kaput. So we want to grow and grow and grow our capacity. So on that level, for my own benefit even, to not get more upset, not get to more angry, not to get outraged and then just escalate things over and over. So sometimes we have that when it's like you phone a friend and they did this to me and they did that to me and blah, 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 blah. And then you phone them again the next day and the next day. And you're just like, by now you've got a well-defined story and you're just making it bigger and bigger and bigger and bigger and bigger. And who's getting hurt? Again, yourself. Yourself. And then your friends get sick of you calling, they don't answer the phone. You know? It's like, oh, please, I've heard it all. Actually, with one friend, after a year, I said to her, you keep telling the same story and over and again. Isn't it about time to drop it? And she did. I had no idea that she would. And I was just like, wow, I should have said that earlier. But I was so, it was for her sake that I said it, because I just thought, you're just torturing yourself with this. It is, isn't it? We torture ourselves with it. We go over and over and self-torture. And when we're complaining about torture from someone else, but we're doing it. So we have to think like that, I think. Yes, you can. Go for it.
When you feel yourself getting angry, how do you control that? If something really makes you upset and you get it, how do you control that within yourself?
Okay. Gals? Come on. Anybody? You Bhutanese, you know how to control anger. You're just smiling. Come on. Anyone can. Sonia. Sonia.
As an observer, be able to take that moment to step back and observe that that's arising.
Yeah. So this is an advanced technique. That's what Sonia's saying. His Holiness the Dalai Lama says it like that. He says, when I observe anger, so he was asked, it was a very long time ago. Some of you heard me say this story many times. Kerry O'Brien in the 7:30 report. How long ago was that? Very long time ago. Anyone remember that? When Kerry O'Brien was the anchor? Now it's Lee Sales, right? And now it's called 7:30 and not 7:30 report. We had that conversation. Okay. It was when there was a particularly strong crackdown and, you know, people weren't being allowed out of in Tibet. Like if you came out of the monastery, you'd probably be shot. That time, that guards all around everywhere. It was very, very horrific. And Kerry said to the Dalai Lama, he said, how, you know, when you see what's happening in your country, surely you must get angry. You know, how can you not be angry at that? Because it's unfathomable in the world, isn't it? Okay, we're talking to Dalai Lama, but it's unfathomable in the world. And His Holiness said, I observe anger arise in my mind. Observe it. And this is what Sonia's saying. By not letting it hijack your mind and take it for a ride and really get totally toxic, I observe it. So by observing it, you're minimizing its impact on your mind. Ah, there's anger. How do I know it's anger? Because we talked about identifying anger earlier. So we look for all the telltale signs. He said, and I observe it fade away. He didn't do that. That's my embellishment. Because that's how I see it. It came up in the mind, it went. Because he said, 1 minute. It's like, 1 minute of anger? You notice that? I just want to finish this story. Thank you. And then you can ask the question. I know you've heard the story before.
No, that wasn't what I meant.
Observing it fade away. And he said, the reason I can do that is because I've meditated since I was 6 years old. And you go, well, I'm not 6 years old. But what he's saying is we can all learn that. We can all learn to observe it in our minds. And this is what, you know, when I was working in this program with school kids, exactly what they were doing. They were learning to observe when the anger arises before they're looking at when anger is 3 levels of anger. Manifest, too late, it's out the mouth, kick and punch, world war, whatever, too late. Emerging, it's before it's come out the mouth, but it's about to, you know, blurp out. Still pretty much too late, but latent, when you can get it, when it's just subtle level of the mind. But the only way we can do that is what we were talking before, cultivating this. You can see how it flows on. Cultivating this mindfulness, this awareness of that. So in the moment when we're faced with someone and that anger arises, if we can get it early enough to say, I know these sneaky thoughts, this is anger coming. We can't always do that, right? It's true. And we tell ourselves we're not angry, we're not frustrated, we're not irritated, we're not any of those things. But in fact, we are already. I mean, the best thing we can do in that situation, if it does come out in a regrettable emotion episode, is to nip it in the bud as much as it can, the fallout, purify our own minds, and apologise to the person and say, yeah, I really got hijacked. My mind got hijacked. But the purification practice, even that. So one of the things here, and the next weekend, we're actually, with all these verses, you know, doing a Chen Rezi practice and purifying this, finding this nectar that purifies those moments that we identify in our mind and the tendency towards that and all the harm that that does, to practice that idea of yesterday, relinquishment, letting go. It's a nice word, relinquishment, let it go, let it go. And when we say that, it's like, let it go, let it go, let it go. You know, it's too late at that point. But if we can, the earlier we can get it, and the only way we can get it earlier is being aware of that in our own minds. We're very aware in somebody else's, not in their mind, but in their behavior and so forth, even those close to us. You know, friends who I know have chronic back pain. I know when it's getting worse because the jaw gets and they get irritated and so just keep out of their way, you know. But we have to be able to keep out of our own way. Take a step back and this is not a benefit to me. So we have to practice patience with ourselves for that. And what's the antidote? Loving kindness towards ourselves. Towards ourselves. And not get out the whip and beat ourselves up. Oh, you should not got angry, because guess what? That just escalated it. No, it's just like, oh, I'm a poor suffering sentient being. I've got anger arising in my mind. Just listen to our own complaints. Oh, maybe I need to some quality time out, maybe, you know, whatever, like that. So with kindness, absolutely.
Just further to that, like once you notice it, to be able to observe it, then maybe even analyse where it's coming from. Is it attachment, anger, ego? What's causing that? That's the antidote. And that's what Buddhism get the Dharma gives you the skills to, and go, the antidote is now pain. So you can sort of calm you down, you don't engage, and hopefully you can be patient towards the person and not escalate.
Alan.
When you before you mentioned about the sensation of anger arising, seeing red in your fingers and things like this, is it the sensation that comes first, or is it in the body rather than the mind? Is it the thought?
I think that's a good question, because in the Buddha's presentation, the thought precedes. This is why we work with the mind. It precedes the speech, it precedes the action. But what first comes to our awareness is another thing. So would that thought come to our awareness first, or would a sort of general malaise, or I feel grumpy? Well, I've identified the grumpy, but something doesn't feel right, or I feel agitated, or I feel rattled, you know, we feel this shakiness, and then we go, something going on. So we don't necessarily, unless we've trained our mind, be able to pick it up at the mental level first. But that's the invitation, and that's the hope, is that we first pick it up at the mental level. Just like with Mathieu Ricard and the tests, you know, this whole cultivating emotional balance and the exquisite states of mind we can develop. We talked about yesterday, you know, these, that we limit ourselves of the possibilities. So the test they did with him on the simulated gun going off. Now, it used to worry me for a while that, but now and then I've had to think about it more and more. So I think I've got a bit more understanding of how amazing this is. So there he was in the lab with all his electrodes stuck all over his brain, as he's had many times. And they said, okay, go into deep meditation. But the instruction beforehand, and there were control group, right? Same thing, same instruction. At some point, randomly, there's going to be a simulated gunshot sound, right? And we'll just see what happens. So Mathieu Ricard sat there in deep meditation. Oh, I don't know if it was deep meditation or it wasn't him, but he sat there meditating. And well, I can say it must have been deep meditation, because then the random shot echoes. Not one muscle in his entire, it wasn't just on the brain, it was everywhere. Not one muscle in his entire body flinched. No subtle movement in any part of his body. Of course, they can't test his mind because, you know, they think it's the brain. But anyway, they can't test it anyway. But in his body, not one single thing flinched. We have an innate survival built-in mechanism, and that's what used to worry me. He was over to override that, which Paul Ekman said you can never do. But he proved Paul Ekman wrong on that. So how early you can bring awareness into that. He was able to overcome fear, right? At a very, very, what seemed to be impossible moment, right? Before it even arose. It didn't arise. He was able to overcome it and just sat there in meditation. Because he'd had that instruction beforehand. Actually, there was no threat. So intellectually, he knew there was no threat. That's what I finally got to the conclusion of, which had worried me before. I thought, no, you could, it's not, it's dangerous to override that, but it's overriding it in a laboratory situation where you've been given the instruction. Very different context. There was actually, he knew there was no actual physical threat to him, right? Of course, if we don't know if there's a physical threat, we do want to be able to get the hell out of there. Of course, it's ridiculous not to. So it just proved, that you're able to override what we say is our innate drives. You know, what is it? Sex and survival, and what's the other one? Is it food, or is that just me?
Well, that would be part of survival.
That's part of survival, I think. Anyway, there's three. Anybody else know? Anyone know what they are? There's three. I forget the other one. It was interesting because when we...
Shelter?
No, it's not shelter. Shelter you don't need. No, but it was interesting because we were doing this in Phuket, you know. I have to say we're in the lap of luxury there at Tanyapura. Have you been there? Tanyapura? You been there? But one of the students, he would go for a swim and he said something swooped, because we were learning all this stuff, and he noticed when he was swimming and he caught something swooping out of the corner of his eye. You know, it's just to show we automatically get out of the way of anything swooping in our direction, anything coming fast towards us. There's all these things they prove. So he was able to sit there in the lab, keep meditating. And when they showed the control group, same instruction, right? Sitting there in meditation, random shot goes off. It's sort of rather normal, dramatic response, even though you've got the same instruction. It's all about control of the mind. It's all about, and of course, you know, whatever hundreds of thousands of hours of whatever it is of meditation he's done. But I discovered there is a way to make Mathieu Ricard upset. Good Weekend did it. They said, you're the happiest man in the world. Don't call him that. That makes him upset. He says, I'm not Bhutanese. No, he didn't say that. But these people here come from the happiest country in the world. Is that still correct? Is it still happy over there in Bhutan, or is it pretty difficult? Nobody's going to own up to it being difficult. So they want the travel alert that it's all very happy. Is there COVID-19 in Bhutan? There is. There were a couple of cases, weren't there? Very early on. Like in Tibet, it was very early on, but they're nipped in the bud. Now there is? Does anyone know? Still there? Many? 69. It's not nothing. It's the whole world, isn't it? Pray for everyone, compassion for everybody. Okay.
I just want to clarify, when we say that the anger arises.
Yes.
Is there any difference between the thought and the emotion?
Thought and emotion, absolutely. Well, emotion is a mental, all the different, and that's why we identify these. So you have the mind. What's the job of the mind? To think. We don't want to stop the mind from thinking. We just want to direct where its thinking goes, which is what we're hopeless at. So far, if we're not trained. I'm focusing on the breath, not on purple, not on anger. I'm focusing on the breath. Training, the mindfulness training our mind to stay on where we want it to go. I mean, I don't know about your people in the workplaces, Rachel, but productivity should go up.
Yeah.
Same as in schools. You get great grades. Why wouldn't every teacher want their students to do that? And behaviour, hey, takes care of itself.
So you would say the thought is first and the emotion?
The emotion, well, what we would identify as emotion in the Buddhist framework for psychology of the mind, different mental factors. So anger is a mental factor arising in the mind, so that when anger arises in the mind and pollutes the thinking to think, Sarah's really annoying, it's hijacking the mind. Right? It can hijack the mind. And this is why, if we think that, what is anger anyway? It's a mental moment, or we'd say quite a few moments actually, but it's not matter. It's not something solid. Look how we describe anger, but it has nothing to hold on to. It is, what's the nature of the mind? It's space-like. It's not matter. That's why the scientists haven't found it, because they need something they can measure, and they can't measure space, They can only measure matter. So the mind itself, so that moment of anger, you could say is a moment of energy. Take away the overlay of anger, and you've got a powerful energy of the mind that you can do something beneficial with. So you transform that into patience, you transform that into love. It's tried different energy, isn't it? Remove the story of anger. It's just a story our mind's made up. So we think like that. And this is what the Dalai Lama is saying, I observe it. So by observing it, it does arise and fade away, because that's what thoughts do. They come, they go, they come, they go. So we don't try and push thoughts away. They come, they go, they come, they go. I mean, one Drak Rinpoche, he just laughs his head off and just says, oh, of course. And people say, oh, I get disturbed by my thoughts. The problem is the disturbance, not the thoughts. He just says, the thoughts come and go. Let them come and go. That's fine. That's what our minds do. Sometimes people have a misconception that meditation is about getting rid of thoughts. That's dangerous, as someone discovered and ended up in a mental health facility. Because you've robbed the mind of its whole role. Its function is to think. But then if we can transform that, look at the people we're talking about transforming problems, transform COVID, a pandemic, into creativity. Incredible creativity that's burst across the world, and use it like as their wake-up moment. I mean, so much of the world reflecting and thinking, how can I do things differently now? Because I have to anyway. I mean, we started Zooming. I can't say I got very good at the technology, but some people are giving it a go to learn it. I'm not willing. Thank you very much. And I believe you're in that category as well. You're younger than me, Sarah, so you can go for it. All right. I think we're going to have to just read through the rest. And as I said, we need a whole other weekend, month, year, lifetime on this. It's indeed one of our students who early on when she came to Vajrayana Institute and Geshe Dawa, he was the one who's talking about mindfulness, that's how you get enlightened. He gave her this as her daily practice. How wonderful. Because as I was saying, you can just fold it up, put it in your heart pocket, not in your bottom pocket, heart pocket. Hold it with you, carry it around, read it, learn it off by heart, actually, and then you don't have to carry it around. Okay, we better just read through the rest because that's all the time we have. When someone whom I have benefited and whom I have great hopes gives me terrible harm, I regard them as my virtuous friend. I'll just say one line about this, otherwise I'll go on forever. Ling Rinpoche said, parents, think about your children when they leave home and then they, you never did this for me, you never did that sort of thing. The ungrateful child. The ungrateful child. That's what he's referring to. Hope I'm not offending anyway. Oh, well, I probably don't have them. Anyway, whatever. In short, both directly and indirectly, I offer every happiness and benefit to all my mothers. I secretly take upon myself all their harms and sufferings. This refers to the practice that we talked about last time of Tonglen, of taking and giving, in the four immeasurable thoughts of taking the wish, if we could, take off all their suffering, take all their suffering upon us. We know we can't, even the Buddha can't, but we want them to be free of that. That's compassion. And then giving all our virtues, all our happiness, everything good in the world, everything that we can positively imagine, all our health, all that, give them everything is the giving, the love. May you be happy, right? That's that one. Also, I do not defile all these practices with the stains of the superstitions of the 8 worldly concerns without being able to go into them in detail at all, simply being caught up in the affairs of this life as if this life is what really matters. Unless this life is what really matters in terms of in cultivating qualities of the mind, which is what you're going to take with you, then, as His Holiness was saying yesterday, what a waste of time. Wasting this precious human rebirth we work so ruddy hard to get, and all the conditions coming together, especially these Bhutanese. They've got the best conditions in the world in that Bhutanese environment. I hope it hasn't been wrecked yet. Is it being wrecked? Tibet's being wrecked. Is the environment in Bhutan being wrecked? Being destroyed? Very good. Keep it that way, because this is Unity Week, which is all the World Unity Week, all the awareness of all the forests and protection of the forests and, biodiversity, everything like that. So that's this week. Of course, it should be this life. As His Holiness was saying yesterday, look after this world. We've almost completely destroyed it. Look after it. And stop fighting. Okay, that's the 8 worldly concerns. And by knowing all phenomena to be illusory, this is the emptiness. That's next module.
So the month after next.
Yeah, that's next module. We'll go in detail. His Holiness mentioned it very briefly in summary yesterday. If I start on that one, we'll be here another few hours. Without trusting in them, I am freed from bondage. So in other words, things aren't what they appear to be. And if you trust in what appears to you, what seems to be out there independent of me, you just get into trouble. So don't trust our obscured mind. In other words, become a Buddha, and then you can trust absolutely everything you think, say, and do, and have great power and have great compassion and be a great holy being and come back and guide the rest of us to enlightenment. So we better dedicate. If we turn to, let me get the page. Yes, 38, it just naturally came up. Well, it was very nice. This was the one, I think, Rachel, you wrote down yesterday. So this was the one His Holiness referred to yesterday. This is from, it says the dedication chapter of the Bodhisattva's Way of Life. It's from the dedication chapter of the Bodhisattva's Way of Life. What I love, well, I love everything about it, but I find when I'm asked to do interfaith events, this is the one I love to read, apart from, well, I do read the last verse, but at my father's funeral, my father said he didn't want any religious prayers. Well, he had a Buddhist nun as a daughter, and it wasn't my call. I just reminded my mother, he said he didn't want any religious prayers. And she said, I know, but I want you to read that. So she was alive, he was dead. So of course you read that. I thought, very good. I read it at your funeral too. I can't remember if I did. Well, she had us singing and dancing. That was her instruction to us. A bit tricky when you've got vows of no singing and dancing, but I made it work. Of course. We were the Von Trapp singers when I was, we did something. And whatever. So she always wanted us singing and dancing. When I became a Buddhist nun, and she said, oh, and I told her tragically that, I'd taken vows not to sing and dance. She said, so, how could anybody in the world stop you from singing? That's a tragedy. And then, of course, I forgot to tell her, actually, we've got all these pujas. We do chanting a lot. Same thing, really. Okay, I should have just said religious singing, Mum. Okay. We'll recite this together. May all beings everywhere, plagued by suffering of bodies and mind, obtain an ocean of happiness and joy by virtue of my merits. May no living creature, Sifa, commit evil or ever fall ill. May no one be afraid or belittled with a mind weighed down by depression. May the blind see forms and the deaf hear sounds. May those whose bodies are worn with toil be restored on finding repose. May the naked find clothing, the hungry find food. May the thirsty find water and delicious drinks. May the poor find wealth, those weak with sorrow find joy. May the forlorn find hope, constant happiness and prosperity. May there be timely rains and bountiful harvests. May all medicines be effective and wholesome prayers bear fruit. May all who are sick and ill quickly be freed from their ailments. Whatever diseases there are in the world, may they never occur again. May the frightened cease to be afraid and those bound be freed. May the powerless find power and may people think of benefiting each other. As long as space remains, as long as transmigratory beings remain, until then, may I too remain to dispel the suffering of transmigratory beings. Thank you, everybody. And thank you for all your comments. Sorry, I didn't have time to read them out, but I'm sure you've shared them all online with each other, and Sally, yes, speedy recovery. You getting better, Sally? I know you're not still up to driving. You're still in our prayers here too. We're doing Zambala Puja here at 4 o'clock. Okay, thanks very much, everybody. Those who are here with us, today's a more conducive day for sitting down, if there's any space in the cafe or thereabouts, if you want to go and microwave your lunch or whatever needs to be done, and we can go down and continue the conversation together for those who can. I'm not sure, maybe some of you have to chop off. But thank you very much for being here today. Yeah, we've got to unmute everyone so they can say hello. Come up and say hello. Maybe not all our Bhutanese friends, because I might get into trouble if that goes on YouTube.
Might overdo the numbers.
Might overdo the numbers, but come up and say hello. Yeah, just space out, folks. Be spaced out. Be spaced out. Space out. 1.5. Do I have to unmute them or do they unmute themselves?
No, they should be able to unmute themselves.
Okay. Hi, Virginia. Hi, Sally.
Hello. Hi.
Hi,
Hello,
Steve.
everyone.
Hi, Julie. Ingrid. Hello, Graham. Good to see you.
Hello, everyone.
I thought you were going to come for Vajrayogini. No, not yet. But they're doing Vajrayogini today. Oops, sorry, your secret's out. I shouldn't have said.
I can't. You talking to me?
No, it's okay, Tim.
Oh.
Didn't hear that, folks. Eva, hi.
Yeah, hi. Hi.
Good to see you. Good to see you.
Good to see you.
And good to see you. Please come and have a look up on the altar. We're finished now, so it's all yours. We've got Bhutanese friends here, as you probably figured. Okay, see you next time. Stay well, stay
See you
safe.
next time. Bye-bye.
See you.
safe.
Bye.
Ciao.